So, like just to keep that name going, because that's what you want people to constantly be like looking up. Like, I heard about this woman, Crystal, and like they look you up and like, oh my God, like look at all this amazing information that's all over the place and not just her website.
Hello and welcome to the Simple and Smart SEO Show,
where we provide tips and advice to improve your website's search engine ranking.
I'm Brittany Herzberg, SEO copywriter for holistic health and wellness pros who want to show up as the answer to a Googled question.
And I'm Crystal Waddell, an e-commerce seller and content creator. I help business owners communicate the value of their products and services through content so you can make more sales and grow your business.
We're business besties who love learning and sharing what we've learned. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Simple and Smart SEO Show. And today we have yet another one of my friends, Laurie-Ann, who is a speaker coach, and I'm probably going to mess up anything else. So before I do that, Laurie-Ann, tell us who you are and how you help people and why you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So I'm a reformed, painfully shy girl who accidentally became a professional speaker. And after years of spending time on stage speaking in leadership and corporate engagement, I now help coaches and consultants use speaking as their best form of marketing because it positions you as the expert, attracts the right clients, and lets you monetize your expertise.
Ta-da! Ta-da! Okay, before we get too far, I keep saying that. It's fine. I'm just going to have that's my pet phrase for today. I love asking people how they define SEO or what you think of when it comes to SEO. And I think this is really cool, especially coming from someone who's not necessarily like what we think of as an SEO expert, because we all have a variety of thoughts around it. So how would you respond to that?
Well, let's see. It's a little unfair because I have had you, Brittany, on my podcast where we did talk about this, I will answer that question with the before you sort of educated me. And I consider SEO to be something for bigger people, bigger companies.
Right. We kind of think of it like that.
Yeah, that is kind of how I look at it. I'm just like, oh, well, it's just little old me. I should focus on other things besides SEO. But as a result of you educating me and working together, that I now know that I need to be leveraging SEO also.
Yeah, I think it's maybe arguably even more important for the quote unquote little guys.
Yeah.
Because we need to be found. All right, I've done a lot of talking. Crystal, join us.
Well, okay, so Laurie-Ann, B's been on your podcast, but what's your podcast? What's it called? You want to give it a shout out so people can check you out there?
Thank you. It is called Be in Demand with Laurie-Ann. It's because and everything that I do is about be in demand, because I just feel like we don't want somebody to say, hey, I got to find somebody who can help me with my SEO. It's like, no, that you need to call Brittany because she's a copyright SEO. Like, Crystal helps people with SEO. Like, you want people to call you out. So that's why it's actually called Be in Demand.
Okay. So I'm totally into people's stories. Like, I want to know all the things, like, how do you get speaking jobs? That's what I want to know. I can't lie. Like, that's all I'm thinking about right now.
She's over there with a pencil and paper. She's like, all right, what do I need to
do? So, but like, how did you get into it?
It was by pure accident. Because like I said, I'm a reformed, painfully shy girl who couldn't even make eye contact with people. And people find that so surprising. I left my corporate job because I kind of fell into coaching and thought, oh, yay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave my corporate job. And, like if you build it, they will come, right? Yeah, no.
With SEO. No, I'm just kidding.
I left my corporate job with no business plan and no sales experience whatsoever. And me and 3 other women were putting together an event, a networking event, because women just network differently. Mm-hmm. So we were really catering it towards other women, but we were like, we need education plus networking. We had a standing room only. Yeah. And like when we were in the planning, they all looked at me and said, you do the speaking, because I had done some speaking in corporate, a little uncomfortable though. And I shook my head yes, while I was thinking to myself, what are you doing? You don't do speaking. But self-integrity is one of my highest values. And because I said that I would do this, I did it.
Oh my gosh.
And I wasn't very good. It literally, so there are 3 types of speakers. There's the motivational, inspiring story. You can do it if I can do it. And people feel good. Then there's the college professor, which is like who the person who just like dishes out tons and tons of information. And then there's what I help people become is the marketer, where you give people enough information so that the right people raise their hand and say, yes, I want to know more. I was the college professor that day. I just started teaching. There was no intro. There was no explanation about who I was, nothing. And this is how I brought it to an end because there was no close. I said to the audience, okay, now I'm done.
It sounds like something I would do.
Now I'm done. I mean, like looking back on it, it's like, oh, so princess-like.
Right.
I just wanted to get away from the front of the room. And I said, if you want to speak to me and talk to me privately, I'll be in the back of the room. And people came up to me saying, so what kind of people do you work with? And what's your website? And I was like, did you not see the train wreck that just happened? But that was how I ended up building up my client base after I left corporate. So
I feel like that's so relatable. Sorry, but I feel like it's like so relatable because I remember being in school and you had to give presentations. And I was always so uncomfortable giving presentations because I flame up red. Like it looks like I'm being hit with the disease from like the chest up. It's bad. And like, so I'm like trying not to think about that and remember like, oh, I'm giving this talk on so-and-so. But I feel like that's so relatable because I think when you're sitting there in the audience, you're picturing yourself in the speaker's position. So anyway, it's just really cool to hear that story because I can understand why so many people would be like, I want to learn more from her.
And thank you. Thank you.
And that was my thought. I'm like, you heard train wreck.
Yeah.
What did they hear? What did they hear? What brought them to the back of the room to talk to you?
Yeah. Now that I've spent many years being on stage and in front of people, I do understand. And I tell my clients that your audience really wants the best for you. They actually, there's so many people who are afraid of public speaking that are in the audience that are like, oh my God, like, how does she do that?
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could do that, so, and I just got better with each presentation.
That's amazing. Yeah. You also,
Thank
yay
you.
for leaving corporate America. Crystal also kind of like with my gentle kick. Well, also just you being you ended up leaving teaching, but
But I think when you're talking about that whole professor mindset, that's where I struggle because I'm a knowledge vomiter,
Yes.
I'm like, and B was talking about this in one of our last episodes, we were talking about getting it out of our brain so someone can help us. But it's like, let me teach you and tell you everything I know and then do with it what you will, Yeah, go ahead. Tell us about why you shouldn't do that.
Okay. First of all, if the audience is overwhelmed because you've given them too much information, they'll do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have over 20 years of experience speaking, and I'm also a master coach. There's no way that I can give all of that information and share all that information in a 60-minute presentation.
Right.
And the solution is not to talk faster.
So I've been doing it wrong all my life. That's actually one thing that a few people in my life know this about me. And every time before I give a presentation, even before podcast interviews, it's like, talk slower. I'm like, do I have to?
Engineering leaders and developers who want to be engineering leaders know they need to learn from the best in the business. And you can find all those leaders on Devinterrupted, the podcast about engineering problems and how to solve them, where leaders from GitHub, Netflix, Stripe, and hundreds of other companies share their insights, lessons learned, and the mistakes they've made along the way. By leveraging data from Linear B's studies of more than 10,000 engineering teams, Devinterrupted is designed to help engineering teams benchmark and improve their developer experience and level up your career. You can check out Devinterrupted wherever you listen to your podcasts and be part of the new wave of engineering leaders driving the next generation of unicorn startups.
Okay, so how do you choose what to prioritize in that 60 minutes?
Well, I have a process that I teach people, and it's like, first you have to be able to, your opening needs to grab people's attention. You need to give people a reason to put their phones down and what I say, lean in to listen more. Then you go into your authority section, which is all right, you got my attention, but why should I listen to you? And then there's what I call like the meat of your presentation. 3 tips, 3 ideas is what you should be sharing in a typical 60-minute or 55-minute presentation. When you get stuffed, when you are asked to speak, like 25 minutes, you're probably only going to give 2 particular tips. And then you just have supporting data to support that particular tip. Like, for example, I might talk about organically growing your email list with quality people. And that's what speaking will do. So I'll use information and stories to support that particular, here's another reason why you want to use speaking to grow your business, because it's organically growing your email list with quality people, not just quantity. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
And sorry.
No, it's fine.
That's why I raised my hand. I raise my hand and then I start talking anyway. See, that's right. Got to get it together. I just wanted to say, I love a good framework, and I love when someone can say, this is how you do it the best way, And so I just want to say thank you, because I think just even that nugget, if someone tuned in and hears that today, that is going to be so powerful for them and so freeing, because I think we all want to make sure that we're giving value, and I'm also one of those people that I get nervous about, on one hand, sharing too much, but then I also, I feel guilty for some reason withholding information that I know is going to help people. The problem is they may not be ready for that information. So that's kind of, where I get stuck. So this was very helpful. And I want to say thank you, because.
And there's also a couple of other reasons, like we don't want to overwhelm the audience. That's number one. A lot of times what I find is that people want to basically explain to the audience like why they are the expert. So if I give more information, the audience is going to believe that I'm the expert that they should be hiring. When if you overwhelm people, they don't do anything. They don't hire you. They don't raise their hand and say, I want that opt-in that you're offering. I want to book a call with you, because they're just like, they're just too overwhelmed that they don't do anything. And here's the other reason for a really good framework is, and this is the part of the reason why I use these, like they're set up in 3s. And also there's, 3 is actually a magic number, that if a meeting planner comes up to you and says, Brittany, oh my God, the speaker before you went way over time and we have to start lunch at 12. I need you to cut off 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. You're going to look at your presentation and say, oh, tip number 2 that I was giving is approximately 12 minutes long. I'm just going to take that whole thing out. Mm-hmm. And you don't miss a beat. You just do your presentation. You do tip 1, you do tip 3, and then you close. And you make the meeting planner or whoever is hiring you look like a rock star.
Yeah, I love that. So there's 2 things that came to mind. One is that for anyone who's thinking of being a podcast guest, and even people that we've spoken to about being on the podcast, I just had a conversation about this recently with someone. You can't give them everything. You shouldn't want to give them everything. It was something that I think I heard Amy Porterfield talk about. I think she was the first one that mentioned this. You only need to give them 10% more than what they have, because they just need that much to know that you're an expert worth trusting. And on that note, I think personally, a lot of us make choices on working with someone because we connect with them versus thinking that they're this great expert with all of the knowledge and whatever. So I think that those are 2 really important things that you've talked about that I just want to highlight.
100%, just completely. And once you start speaking, you get to use parts of your speech in other places. You asked me to explain hey, introduce yourself to my audience. And I can spew that off quickly because I use it all the time. Mm-hmm. It's part of that authority section that I use. I just want also people to understand that I believe in the past couple of years that speaking needs to be redefined. And speaking is so much more than stages and Zoom these days. It's right here, right now.
I was doing. Talk to us about that. So what are some speaking opportunities or speaking events that most of us just don't even think of? Because I know I've heard you rattle some off and I've just been like, wow, I never thought about that.
Well, there is like a live stream show. There's creating videos, podcast guesting, podcast hosting. You can be a guest expert on a summit, in somebody's high-end mastermind, in some sort of like a quarterly event. I'm thinking of all the different ones that I've done just recently. There's just so many different forms of speaking. I mean, if you do a sales call, you have to be able to present who you are and what you do and what you can do for this particular client, in a succinct way.
That's
and to have
really
that confidence, to be able to communicate with confidence. That's really what this all comes down to.
That's good.
Okay. So one of the reasons why I feel like our show has taken off and found early success is because we've done what you're talking about in it's very simple. There's no secret here. We in our show notes, we talk about, we describe what we talked about in the show. You know what I mean? That's what SEO is. You are using the words that people use to find what you're talking about. So I'm thinking about all of these different, these different places that you can speak. How do you get permission to reuse that in your own content so that you can then capture those words in a way that then, propels your own SEO strategy, like on your own website versus within someone else's community?
Getting a testimonials is one fabulous way. And then by having the testimonial from whomever, then you can link back to their particular, like their information page, like about their mastermind, about their quarterly summits, different networking events that I've spoken at. I mean, a lot of times these pages stay on websites forever because they're under the past events. So there's another way, just like the SEO, and like your name is just going to keep showing up again and again and again. Does that answer your question?
It does, but then it also points out this, because I was thinking about it more from the perspective of your own website, but what you're also talking about here is gaining domain authority from the website of, the people that you're speaking with or speaking to. And that's even more powerful in some ways, so, there's two different ways that you can capture major SEO, like major optimization here. And the first is by bringing it to your website in the form of a testimonial, like you just said, and then getting those backlinks from the organizations that you serve. And so I think that's really key. Very, very insightful.
I mean, how cool is it to like Google someone's name, and it's not just their website that comes up. It's, our, keynote speaker, this, guest expert. I've been on all these podcasts. I mean, that just starts to build more of your authority. So I'm a big fan of putting people's names, like when I have a guest on my podcast, I tell them, I'm going to put your name in the title, because it's good SEO. And I even encourage them, I'm just like, put it on your website so that like we do all these, and I call it in the email, this geeky backlink stuff.
Yeah, totally. You're answering the question that I had in my head that I was going to ask you, which is for something like a podcast or even a speaking event, what do you think it's important for us, for business owners, for speakers, to make sure that is called out or highlighted in a title, I don't even know what to call it, but like, what do you think is important for us to make sure that other people know when they're highlighting us?
Really focusing on your name and letting people know, like, we have a guest speaker, Brittany. I'm not even going to try your last name.
I was going to say, don't do it. I was like, don't do it.
So, like just to keep that name going, because that's what you want people to constantly be like looking up. Like, I heard about this woman, Crystal, and like they look you up and like, oh my God, like look at all this amazing information that's all over the place and not just her website or Instagram.
Yeah. There's an amazing tool that SEMrush, I said it right this time.
Yes, you did. I'm so proud of you.
I'm loving SEMrush. Okay. These people made their tool for minds like mine. They're very comprehensive, they're all about the content and that type of stuff too. So, and we're going to have someone from SEMrush on the podcast in a couple of weeks.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Guys. That's exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. But what this all, comes under the umbrella of is something that SEMrush calls reputation management. And so, I don't think we've ever really talked about this before, but if there is one first thing that every business owner should do right now, if you've never done it, is Google your business name, whether it's your own name or, an actual like collagenwood.com. That's my business name. If you would need a wooden sign or letters,
shameless plug.
collagenwood.com. Yeah.
They're really beautiful.
Yeah. So, but that's the first thing, because there are so many businesses who are not even showing up for their branded keywords for their own name. And this is like speaking, and everything that you're sharing right here, such a powerful way to build that reputation management and really, just saturate that search engine results page with your authority. So I just love that.
Yes. And the more that you speak, the more places that are going to have your name on their website, the more, like you can actually put like their logos on your website and just link right back to their website. I mean, this is why I think like speaking is the gift that keeps on giving.
It really does. This makes me wonder, do you ever have occasions where you've done a speaking event and then a transcript is put on a website, or they maybe just do like a feature article or something like that, where they take what you've said and somehow use it in a written form?
I don't know if anybody has transcribed any of my speeches, but what a fabulous idea.
Right?
I did recently speak for an organization, and monthly they just have guest speakers that come in for their high-end clients. And I was able actually to get a copy of, because it was done on Zoom, I was actually to get a copy of that recording. So you're just giving me ideas that I should just have it transcribed, because I'm going to cut it up into little small videos and use it myself.
Is that something that you do? Like, do you have a blog? Is it something you prioritize for yourself?
I am right now in the process of moving my website from one platform to another. And so my intention is to have more of a blog and have my podcast episodes on there as well. My current website does not have that information, just because it's a pain in the butt to use.
It is. I'm excited to see that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I want to encourage you to do that, because like we were talking about, the search engine results pages have a different way of showing up for different formats, or different formats have a different way of showing up in search engine results pages. So there's videos, and Google is now indexing audio. So again, that aligns perfectly with what we're talking about today. But I guess the point here is, you have your reputation management of your name, showing up on that search engine results page, but then there's also the images tab. So if there are images of you at a speaking event, or, we could just go crazy with the possibilities on that one. You can then go to videos with the same element. And then by implementing those transcripts on your website, you can then also link to those images and those videos. And it just creates this beautiful, natural spider web of authority that is just, it's blowing my mind right now, because I'm just thinking, wow, how many speakers have not done these things, and how powerful would that be for their reputation management? So
yes, I'm all for it. So as soon as like my website does get moved over to this new platform, I mean, I even want to add Pinterest back into this, because I had a VA who was doing Pinterest and my Facebook lives, and I would suddenly get messages from YouTube saying, hey, this is how many people like recently watched your videos. And I was like, where is this all coming from? And then I realized it was because of her, because she was using really good SEO over in Pinterest and over on YouTube, and just directing people.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
I got a major takeaway from what, we're talking about here. And it's just the fact that SEO is natural.
Yes. That actually totally, the light bulb hit me when Laurie-Ann and I know each other, because we were in the Copy Confidence Society with Marisa Corcoran, where you go in and you really refine your messaging so that you show up and people understand who you are, who you help, how they can refer people to you, all of that stuff. And I think it was, it might've been the very first class that I listened to, like this webinar that I listened to of Marisa's, where she was saying, if the more you talk about things, the more you refine your messaging, really understand who you are, how you help people, those keywords just naturally show up. It just it's not, and that's why my website was working. My massage therapy website was working even though I hadn't put a strategy in place. It's why the stuff was taking off. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, how can I help other people do this?
And, the more you are using speaking, you've got all these great opportunities. One of the things that, like, we were just having this conversation about blogs, and I was just thinking, you're right. I should be, like all the podcasts that I write. I mean, just, excuse me, not that I write, all the podcasts that I record should be turned into some sort of a blog. So this just, people learn in different ways. Some people it's video, some people it's audio, and some people like to read. And I really think it's about giving people, sharing your content and sharing your passion and your message in multiple formats so that people are reading it, watching it, listening to it in whatever their preference is. So
and to your point with being a speaker, it gives you so many, it's like multimedia. It gives you so many options.
Yes.
You're brilliant.
It's really easy to just to take a recording. Also, I think one of my speeches, we downloaded as a recording and put it onto, as an audio recording, as an upsell when somebody bought my book. And, or it was a bonus for something. I mean, there's so many ways to repurpose speaking.
Yeah.
Wow, that answered a question that we didn't even ask. But I wanted to kind of go back to where you were talking about possibly, going back and blogging your podcast and that type of thing. And I was hoping I could share a tip that we're testing right now. We're testing.
Please.
And I like to, share as we're testing because it could become a thing. It probably already is a thing and we're just discovering it. But rather than sending people back to Buzzsprout for the audio of our podcast, we are now also sending it to YouTube. And so the great thing about this is because, YouTube and Google obviously are, connected and owned by Alphabet. So they're all, the same company. But rather than sending your website visitor outside your realm of authority, you can then embed that YouTube video into your blog as an alternative form of, how people like to consume it or whatever, but it stays within your realm versus sending it one step away from you. So I just wanted to share that with you.
We need to just bring people into our ecosystem and let them have everything right there instead of them having, because we all know that once you go to YouTube, once you send something, there's all those really cool looking videos that are off on the right-hand side.
And it just keeps playing it. It suggests something and then it just usually automatically plays it for you. So I think that's really brilliant. It is.
Yes. It does turn into a black hole really fast. But the other thing I want to make sure that I share with people is that there are so many speaking opportunities right under your nose. There are so many places that you're probably already going to, and those places are looking for speakers.
Let's talk more about that. Yes.
We're both like,
So in 2018, MPI, which is Meeting Planners International, actually came up with a stat that said that every day, there are 7,500 speaking opportunities.
Now, I heard you mention that. And that's mind blowing.
Yes. Now that's really meetings and conferences. Like now, because I believe that speaking needs to be redefined, there's so much more that's available. And that number, that 7,500 actually is here in the US. That comes down to 150 opportunities every single day per state. Granted, some have more than others, depending on the time of the year, like Alaska in January. Chances are not that many.
Hey, I'm Chad, and I'm a visual storyteller at Basecamp. I make videos about all the cool features that Basecamp offers, which involves writing scripts.
Where did I save that draft again?
Collaborating with colleagues.
This is due by yesterday? Got it.
And getting feedback from my team.
Were his notes in an email or a chat?
Or was that a dream? That's a lot to keep track of, but Basecamp keeps my team organized. That's where we store files, schedule to-dos, receive feedback, and basically manage everything. Basecamp helps millions of teams keep their projects on track, including ours. Want to see how Basecamp can help with your team? Go to basecamp.com/Chad. That's basecamp.com/Chad.
Where did I leave my camera again? Found it.
Okay, so B talks a lot about this program called Haro. Did I pronounce that right?
Help a reporter out. Yes.
Yes. So, and that is for, written content and that type of thing. Is there
Both. It's for podcasts too. And I've even seen them pitched, speaking like, what am I trying to say? Like TV interviews, things like that. So it's all kinds of opportunities.
Yes.
Well, I guess my question though, is there something specific for speaking that's like whatever I can't pronounce?
Not really. Even if you had some sort of Google alert, which I've used, and say, like a call for speakers, you're going to get also a lot of government stuff. And they're not necessarily always speaking opportunities. It's really just about like looking around you, like make a list of the different Facebook groups that you're in that bring in speakers. What sort of memberships are you in? Look at your local chamber, networking events, whether they're online. Actually, I have a client who she started her own meetup where she is teaching people her passion, and she's like that's how she is. So she's speaking on Meetup, essentially attracting people, and that's how she's getting clients. So look around you. That's what I tell people, like, just write a list of the different places and then approach them and ask them like, hey, I've been a member here for the past 3 years. I noticed that we have monthly meetings. We bring in monthly speakers, quarterly speakers. What's the process for booking speakers?
Also, I will say Laurie-Ann is fantastic at this about just asking her people, her network. Like we did a podcast together. She's like, here's 15 people that you could go connect with. Let me know if you have any, which I love. I'm a connector. I love meeting other connectors. It's amazing. So it's just like, ask your people, even if there is no apparent in or a very apparent, like, oh, they might know someone like this. Just ask, because you really never know.
Yeah. I had a goal this year to be on 30 podcasts.
Mm-hmm. What are you up to?
Totally forgot about it. Like in the beginning, it was like, oh, okay, I've got like 6, and it's been like going along. And then I realized the beginning of October when somebody said that there are 80 more working days for the rest of the year. And I was like, what were some of those goals? And I was like, I don't think I'm anywhere. And I think I was at 15. So I just started reaching out to people, and anybody who was on my podcast, any guests that I had, I would just started asking people like, who can you introduce me to? And I'm not shy about asking now, like, hey, I've got this goal if you'd like to help me. I got lots of people who just like reached out and said, oh, here's somebody who you can, who we can introduce you to. Now there's lots of lists about podcasts, but not necessarily speaking, to answer your question, Crystal. It is really about finding an organization. And there's over 200,000 professional trade and associations that are here in this country alone. So, and these people have meetings all the time for their members. They're looking for speakers. So you reaching out and, being courageous enough to make the ask, you're doing them a favor.
And
looking. Yes.
That's another great reason they should be thinking of SEO. And like we've been talking about, they might naturally have the SEO worked into their website, to their calls for speakers, or where they're sharing about their masterminds or summits or things like that.
Absolutely.
I know you had something you wanted to share, Crystal.
Oh, well, I wanted to say someone reached out on LinkedIn just yesterday to ask me to come on some sort of LinkedIn series that he's doing as a guest subject matter expert. And so I thought, wow, that falls under this other speaking that you're talking about.
Yes.
And so I'm kind of wondering too, like, do you leverage LinkedIn at all? Or is there, something there with LinkedIn and speaking?
I would say in the past 6 months, I've been hanging out on LinkedIn a little bit more. I was a guest on somebody's live stream show, and he had just lost his co-host at the end of the show. I basically, he asked me, he's like, well, what are you doing next week? And I said, showing up here. and I literally became, a co-host on a show that I was just a guest on. So I'm
cool.
the guest that never left. And on there, like, this show is basically, it starts on LinkedIn, but then it's also restreamed over on YouTube, my Facebook group, my Facebook page, all these other different places. but it does start on LinkedIn.
Have you seen that grow your connections and followers?
My analytics over on LinkedIn, yes, definitely has gone up.
Crystal, we need to go on LinkedIn.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we totally should. Yeah. It'd be much better than going on Instagram.
You definitely could be recording this over on LinkedIn.
Right. Because I know I have a creator account, which lets us do lives. I don't know if you do, but I got to ask my client and friend. I have a girl, Selena, who knows all things LinkedIn. Yeah. I need to ask her.
All right. Well, let me ask a question, because I'm like, look, we got the expert in the room. You know what? I want to know how you get paid, and I want to know how you price yourself as a new speaker. If you're like, hey, easy. I want to do this. What do you do?
So first off, not every opportunity is paid, but you never speak for free.
Mm-hmm.
You can speak for no fee. There's a difference. No fee means there's always an exchange of value. Like you get a list of the email lists that are there. You get to pitch your services. There's you get to sell your products in the back of the room. There's always some sort of exchange of value, testimonials, videos, you name it. So that's one thing. So how do you get paid as a speaker? Here's the magic question. What's your budget for speakers? Every organization's different. So the typical person that I'm working with is not going to be like a professional speaker, where a professional speaker, it's, like the bottom line budget, not budget, but price range, it's usually $4,500 to get me to cross the country, come and speak at your organization. And then it goes up from there. So if somebody doesn't have $4,500, then there's other ways to negotiate. Like maybe they would book you for somebody else, like another event that year. I've got 2 books that I can sell. So the organization can they've got a budget for speakers, but they also have a gift budget. So one organization that I'm thinking of in particular, they didn't have my speaker fee. However, they were able to meet it because they were buying my book from me, which is self-published, and I have my own publisher, and the books were all shipped there. So from the profits that I made from the book, it met my speaker fee. And so there's lots of different creative ways. But most importantly, you got to be outstanding on the stage. And when I say stage, in person or virtual, you just have to be outstanding. You need to separate yourself and not look like a novice speaker, both on your website and when you're actually speaking.
Okay, I have a question. It made me think of a question.
Yes.
What do you do? Because I've run into this and I feel like everybody does. What do you do if you're on like a podcast or you're on a live and you're not really jiving with the one that's leading the interview? Is there a way to, as a speaker, to take back the power or like lead the conversation in a good way? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm kind of getting at?
I do. And sometimes what you need to do as the speaker, maybe you need to what we call like, it's about frame control is what they call it. So if you're on a podcast interview, you might need to just like move your body so that and in a way, like not just like I'm shifting my body weight from one side to the other, but maybe I just actually like get up, so that the other person that I'm not jiving with or the host is just like, what are they doing? It stops them from, like suddenly they're thinking. If you're at an in-person event and you just feel like I've lost control of the audience, or I can see like they're not interested, then maybe what you do is you walk around the room. You go to the back of the room and continue speaking, because now your audience has to turn around, like they're changing their body, because it's like, what are they doing back there? I suddenly become curious, and now I'm more interested in what the speaker is saying and doing again. Does that help?
That is so interesting.
It's simple. Like a lot of what I teach my clients is the neuroscience. I mean, as much as technology changes, our brains are the same.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, even with copywriting, I deal a lot with psychology. It's interesting. And I know Crystal has her own stuff from teaching that she's dived into. I don't know if that's a word, but it's going to be a word right now.
Yeah. Well, as you were thinking about that, that used to be one of my strategies. And I love teaching middle school kids. Everybody that I talked to that I said, oh, I taught middle school. They're like, gosh, I'm like, no, I love it because I can make a joke, I can just make a joke and it help them calm down or whatever. And what middle school kids, just like all of us, don't want the world to know is that we are completely obsessed with what other people are thinking about us at all times, even though nobody's thinking about you because they're obsessed about what you're thinking about them. So it's just like, whatever. But they also don't like to be, called out in front of their peers. They don't really like, to stand out in that negative way. And instead of trying to, get into confrontations with my students, I would just go stand next to them. Like say I was teaching or we were supposed to be doing something and they were off task. I didn't say, gosh, Brittany, why don't you do your work, or whatever, I mean, that's not relationship building. I think there's so much with teaching and, just good business acumen, all that type of stuff. It's just about building a good relationship with someone and then, going next to them and just kind of reminding them like, hey, I'm here and this is kind of what we're supposed to be focused on. And sometimes they just need that, like you said, that just redirection of, oh yeah, let me get focused here. Let me get curious again. And, it makes all the difference in the world. So yeah.
Amazing. Okay.
Took me way back.
All the way back. Before we let you go, Laurie-Ann, is there anything else you want to make sure you share?
I want to share with everybody a speaking tip.
Okay.
And that is, this one's for in person. And you should do this even if you're speaking virtually. One is to like always show up, early. But if you're speaking in person, get there early so that you can say hello to people as they're coming in. Whether it's they're coming into your room, they're arriving at the meeting, whether it's a dinner meeting, a breakfast meeting, just get there early to say, hi, I'm Laurie-Ann. I'm really glad that you're here. Oh, because they'll be like, oh, you're the speaker today. It's like, yeah, like, and just like what compelled you to show up today? You get to ask people questions and then you can spontaneously, inject it into your presentation. Like, oh, I was talking to Brittany before the presentation this morning and she mentioned XYZ. Now I'm calling you out, but you also, I get to make you feel important too.
Yeah.
And you become part of the presentation.
I love that. And that actually made me think of, I'm like beaming over here because my favorite Pure Barre teacher, I always made sure I got there early because she would always come over just like this, like ray of sunshine. She would come over, just like hang out with you, give you a hug, say hi, ask how your day is going, tell you she was so glad that you showed up. And then she just like bopped around the room. It was the nicest thing ever. And even that, as we're talking about speaking opportunities that we don't really think of, she was teaching a class. She was speaking at us for an hour.
Yes, that's speaking. Absolutely. There's so many different forms of speaking that I know I didn't even touch. I didn't even scratch the surface. But hey, if you're speaking to one or many, you're a speaker.
This is so good. Okay. Where else can people connect with you so we can learn more about all these speaking things?
Well, they can definitely find me over on this LinkedIn live show called Contagious Leadership. So you can find me on LinkedIn. My website is speakandstandout.com. And also I do a lot of, stuff over on Instagram, and that's Laurie-Ann.Murabito. So I would love to, if you have any questions, I am an open book. Feel free to DM me right over on either LinkedIn or Instagram. I love to help people really start leveraging the opportunities because speaking is the fastest way to grow your business.
I love it. Will you pitch your podcast again one more time? Because I know we talked about it at the beginning, but
yes, the name of the podcast is Be in Demand.
I love it. And we will make sure to link all of those things.
Yes. And the SEO for just like Laurie-Ann Murabito podcast, it'll come right up.
I love it. I love
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yes.
This was a lot of
wonderful.
Fun.
Yeah. Thank you, B. Thanks for always finding these interesting people that know so much and can teach us, give us this, quick bachelor's degree and what we need to start with.
I love that quick bachelor's degree, honorary degrees in all of these subjects.
Yes, that's exactly what we did today.
I love it. Well, thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time and have a great day.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like this info, subscribe before you go so you never miss out on something related to SEO.
See you next time.